Right now, 4.2 light-years away, a red dwarf star called Proxima Centauri burns with the fury of 600 billion nuclear bombs every second. Orbiting this cosmic furnace sits a world that might harbor life, our closest potentially habitable neighbor in the entire universe. But between us and that alien shore lies a gulf so vast that crossing it would require us to solve challenges that break the laws of physics, economics, and human psychology. We will journey through radiation storms that melt steel, encounter dust particles moving fast enough to vaporize cities, and face energy requirements that make our entire civilization look like a flickering candle. Prepare yourselves. We begin. Proxima Centauri feels close because astronomers call it our nearest stellar neighbor. Scientists speak of it like the house next door, a quick trip across the cosmic street. But this friendly language conceals a terrifying truth that becomes clear the moment you try to visualize the actual distance. 4.2 light-years means that light itself, the fastest thing in the universe, takes more than 4 years to travel from Proxima to Earth. Light moves at 670 million miles per hour, fast enough to circle our entire planet 7 times in a single second. Yet even at this incomprehensible speed, photons leaving Proxima spend more than 1,500 days racing through the void before they finally reach your eyes. Try to picture it differently. If Earth were a marble sitting in New York City, Proxima Centauri would be another marble placed somewhere in the middle of the Pacific Ocean. The space between them contains absolutely nothing. No air, no islands, no rest stops. Just a black vacuum stretching beyond human comprehension, punctuated occasionally by specks of dust moving fast enough to punch holes through solid steel. NASA's fastest spacecraft, New Horizons, tears through space at 36,000 miles per hour. This probe reached Pluto in 9 years, a journey that made headlines around the world. At that same record-breaking speed, New Horizons would need 78,000 years to reach Proxima Centauri. That timeline spans the entire history of human civilization many times over. Every rocket we have ever built, every speed record we have ever set, every technological breakthrough we have ever achieved, all of it combined would still leave us crawling like ants across a distance that light itself finds demanding. The gap between us and our nearest stellar neighbor contains enough empty space to swallow 1 million solar systems without any of them ever touching each other. But that crushing scale is just the beginning of our problems. Distance alone would be merely inconvenient if space were truly empty, a peaceful highway where spacecraft could coast undisturbed for millennia. What actually lurks in that seemingly vacant darkness transforms a difficult journey into a gauntlet of death that would test every limit of human engineering and endurance. 4 light-years sounds manageable until you convert it into numbers the human mind can actually process. This distance equals 25 trillion miles, a figure so large that writing it out requires a 1 followed by 13 zeros. If you counted 1 number per second without stopping to eat, sleep, or breathe, reaching 25 trillion would take you 800,000 years. Imagine trying to walk this distance. At 3 miles per hour, the journey would demand 9 trillion hours of continuous walking, over 1 billion years of non-stop hiking, a time span longer than complex life has existed on Earth. You would witness the rise and fall of entire species, the birth and death of mountain ranges, and the slow drift of continents across the planet's surface. Even driving becomes absurd at these scales. A car traveling at highway speeds would need 350 million years to reach Proxima Centauri. During that road trip, you would watch the sun complete 1.5 full orbits around the center of our galaxy. Dinosaurs would evolve, rule the Earth, and go extinct twice, while you held the steering wheel. The fastest commercial airliner tops out at around 600 miles per hour. At that speed, reaching Proxima would take 4.7 million years. Modern humans have only existed for 300,000 years, meaning this flight would last 15 times longer than our entire species has walked the Earth. The pilot would need to account for ice ages, the invention of agriculture, the rise of civilization, and the development of space travel itself. These comparisons reveal why astronomers measure cosmic distances in light years rather than miles. Regular units of measurement become meaningless when describing spaces so vast that light, which can circle the Earth in a 17th of a second, requires years to cross them. The human brain simply cannot hold these scales in focus without breaking them down into familiar analogies. But scale represents only one dimension of the challenge. Even if we could somehow compress this journey into a manageable time frame, the physics of moving through space at the required speeds would introduce problems that make the distance itself seem trivial. The faster we try to go, the more the universe conspires against us. Our fastest spacecraft moves like a snail when measured against interstellar distances. Voyager 1, launched in 1977, currently travels at 38,000 miles per hour relative to the Sun. This probe has journeyed farther from Earth than any human-made object, crossing into interstellar space after 36 years of flight. Yet Voyager would need 73,000 years to reach Proxima Centauri, assuming it were even heading in the right direction. The Parker Solar Probe holds the current speed record, reaching 430,000 miles per hour during its closest approach to the Sun. This incredible velocity results from falling toward our star and using gravity to accelerate, like a marble rolling down a hill. Even at that record-breaking speed, Parker would require over 6,000 years to reach Proxima Centauri. These numbers expose the fundamental problem with chemical rockets. Every spacecraft ever launched relies on burning fuel to create thrust. But carrying enough fuel for an interstellar journey creates an impossible equation. The more fuel you load, the heavier your spacecraft becomes. The heavier your spacecraft, the more fuel you need to accelerate it. This vicious cycle quickly spirals into absurdity. Chemical rockets max out at efficiency values that make interstellar travel laughably impractical. Even if you built a rocket the size of a skyscraper and filled it entirely with the most efficient fuel possible, it could only accelerate a small payload to a tiny fraction of the speed needed for a reasonable interstellar journey. The math simply does not work with conventional propulsion. Consider the space shuttle, which weighed 4.4 million pounds at launch, but delivered only 250,000 pounds to orbit. That ratio means 94% of the total mass consisted of fuel and engines, leaving just 6% for actual payload. Scaling this approach to interstellar speeds would require fuel masses larger than planets. Ion drives offer better efficiency, but generate thrust measured in ounces rather than tons. These engines can run for years on tiny amounts of fuel, gradually accelerating a spacecraft to impressive speeds. However, even the most advanced ion drive would need centuries to reach velocities that make interstellar travel feasible, and the spacecraft would still take millennia to arrive. The speed barrier represents more than just an engineering challenge. It reveals the fundamental limitation of carrying your own energy source on a journey that spans light years. The energy needed to send even a small spacecraft to Proxima Centauri dwarfs the total power output of human civilization. Accelerating 1 ton of mass to 10% of the speed of light, a reasonable minimum for interstellar travel, requires 900 billion joules of energy. That figure equals the total energy consumption of the entire United States for over 2,000 years. And these calculations assume perfect efficiency, meaning 100% of the energy goes directly into accelerating the spacecraft with zero waste. Real engines waste enormous amounts of energy as heat, light, and exhaust. Chemical rockets convert less than 3% of their fuel energy into useful thrust. Even advanced ion drives achieve efficiencies below 50%. Accounting for realistic inefficiencies multiplies the energy requirements by factors of 10 or more. The numbers grow even more staggering when you consider that a spacecraft must also decelerate at its destination. An object in motion stays in motion unless acted upon by an external force. And a spacecraft traveling at 10% of the speed of light would zip past Proxima Centauri in minutes unless it carries enough fuel to slow down and enter orbit. This deceleration requirement doubles the energy budget, assuming you use rockets for both acceleration and braking. Some mission designs propose using magnetic fields or radiation pressure from the destination star to slow down. But these exotic braking systems remain theoretical. Most practical proposals still require the spacecraft to carry deceleration fuel, doubling an already impossible energy requirement. Compare this to our current energy production. All the power plants on Earth, nuclear, coal, natural gas, solar, wind, and hydroelectric combined, generate about 28 trillion watts continuously. Running every power plant on the planet for over 2 centuries would produce enough energy to send 1 ton toward Proxima Centauri, assuming perfect efficiency and no other energy needs for human civilization. Building an interstellar spacecraft would require dedicating the entire energy output of human civilization for longer than recorded history has existed. And that assumes we could store the energy without losses, build perfect engines, and convince 8 billion people to live without electricity while we prepare for a journey that might fail. This energy barrier explains why serious interstellar mission proposals focus on tiny payloads measured in grams rather than tons. Space radiation transforms the journey to Proxima Centauri into a 4-year bombardment that would cook any human crew from the inside out. Beyond Earth's protective magnetic field and atmosphere, cosmic rays stream through the solar system like invisible bullets fired from exploding stars and distant galaxies. These high-energy particles punch through spacecraft walls, equipment, and human tissue with ease. Cosmic ray particles travel at nearly the speed of light, carrying energies millions of times greater than anything produced in Earth-based particle accelerators. When these rays strike human cells, they shatter DNA molecules, trigger cancers, and cause radiation sickness that kills within weeks. A crew traveling to Proxima would receive radiation doses equivalent to getting a full-body CT scan every single day for 4 straight years. The sun occasionally unleashes solar storms that make the background cosmic ray environment look gentle. During these events, our star hurls billions of tons of charged particles into space at speeds up to 5 million miles per hour. Astronauts on the International Space Station retreat to shielded compartments during major solar storms. But even low Earth orbit receives some protection from Earth's magnetic field. A crew traveling between stars would face these storms with no shelter except what they carried with them. Shielding a spacecraft against radiation requires massive amounts of material. Lead blocks radiation effectively, but weighs over 700 pounds per cubic foot. Surrounding a crew compartment with just 3 feet of lead shielding would add thousands of tons to the spacecraft's mass. Water provides cheaper radiation protection and serves double duty as drinking water, but effective shielding still requires layers several feet thick. The weight penalty for radiation shielding conflicts directly with the energy requirements for interstellar travel. Every pound of shielding material multiplies the fuel needed to accelerate the spacecraft, making the energy requirements even more impossible than they already were. Mission planners face an impossible choice between cooking the crew with radiation or making the spacecraft too heavy to reach its destination. Some designs propose using the spacecraft's own fuel as radiation shielding, positioning fuel tanks around the crew compartment. This works only during the early phases of the journey when the tanks remain full. As the engines consume fuel during acceleration, the radiation protection gradually disappears, exposing the crew to increasing doses as the journey progresses. Even robotic spacecraft suffer radiation damage that degrades electronics, solar panels, and scientific instruments over the course of an interstellar journey. The seemingly empty space between stars contains dust particles that become armor-piercing projectiles when encountered at interstellar travel speeds. These microscopic grains of silicon, carbon, and ice drift through the galaxy at relatively low velocities. But relative speed determines impact energy. A spacecraft traveling at 10% of the speed of light would collide with dust particles at closing speeds of 60 million miles per hour. At these velocities, a grain of sand carries the kinetic energy of a hand grenade. The smallest dust particle, barely visible under a microscope, hits with enough force to punch holes through steel plating. A piece of debris the size of a pebble would strike with the energy of a large bomb, potentially destroying an entire spacecraft in a fraction of a second. The physics follows Einstein's mass-energy relationship, where kinetic energy increases with the square of velocity. Double your speed and you quadruple the impact energy of every collision. At relativistic speeds, even hydrogen atoms floating in space become dangerous projectiles that gradually erode spacecraft surfaces like cosmic sandblasting. Interstellar space contains roughly 1 dust particle per cubic mile, which sounds sparse until you calculate collision rates. A spacecraft traveling to Proxima Centauri would sweep through billions of cubic miles of space during its journey. The probability of hitting dangerous debris approaches 100% over such distances and timeframes. The dust impact problem worsens as spacecraft accelerate to higher speeds. Mission designs, targeting 20 or 30% of the speed of light, face impact energies comparable to nuclear weapons. At these velocities, even the thin hydrogen gas between stars becomes problematic, creating drag forces that gradually slow the spacecraft while heating its surface to thousands of degrees. Some theoretical designs propose clearing a path through space using powerful lasers fired ahead of the spacecraft, vaporizing dust particles before they can be encountered. However, the power requirements for such laser systems rival those needed to accelerate the spacecraft itself. Einstein's theory of relativity transforms interstellar travel into a journey through time itself, where clocks aboard fast-moving spacecraft run slow compared to those on Earth. At 10% of the speed of light, time dilation remains subtle. A 4-year journey would seem about 2 weeks shorter to the crew than to observers back home. But as spacecraft approach higher fractions of light speed, time dilation becomes a dominant factor that reshapes the entire mission. A spacecraft traveling at 90% of the speed of light would experience time running at less than half the normal rate. The crew would age 2 years, while Earth experiences 4.5. This differential aging means crew members return to a world that has aged much faster than they have, creating a permanent separation from the civilization they left behind. The effects become extreme near the speed of light. At 99% of light speed, time aboard the spacecraft slows to 1/7 of Earth's rate. A journey to Proxima that takes 4.5 years in Earth time would feel like only 8 months to the crew. The travelers would return to find that everyone they knew had aged 5 times faster, transforming friends and family into elderly strangers or historical figures. These relativistic effects create profound psychological challenges. Imagine leaving Earth with a newborn child and returning to find that baby has become a middle-aged adult who barely remembers you. Spouses would age apart. Friendships would dissolve across time. The crew would become temporal exiles, cut off from their original era. Time dilation also complicates mission planning and communication. Ground controllers must account for the fact that messages sent to a relativistic spacecraft arrive at different rates depending on the ship's velocity. A conversation between Earth and the crew could take hours or days to complete, with the time delays changing constantly as the spacecraft accelerates and decelerates. The effect works both ways. Crew members looking back at Earth would see events unfolding in fast forward as their spacecraft approaches light speed, watching years pass on Earth in mere months of ship time, witnessing the rise and fall of governments, the aging of landscapes, and the march of technological progress at an accelerated pace. Some physicists propose using time dilation as a feature rather than a problem, designing missions where crews experience short subjective journey times while Earth has decades to develop better technology or prepare for their return. Multi-generational spacecraft create psychological challenges that make physical survival seem simple by comparison. Children born aboard these vessels would grow up knowing they will spend their entire lives traveling between stars, never seeing a planetary surface or breathing natural air. These second and third generation crew members would inherit a mission they never chose. Trapped in a metal container, crossing empty space toward a destination they might never reach. The first generation faces the trauma of permanent exile from Earth. Crew members would watch their home planet shrink to a point of light, knowing they will never return. Every sunset, every forest, every ocean breeze becomes a memory that fades over years of recycled air and artificial gravity. The psychological weight of this permanent separation could trigger depression, anxiety, and mental breakdown among crew members who volunteered for a mission they cannot escape. Later generations face different but equally severe challenges. Children born on the spacecraft would struggle to understand concepts like weather, seasons, or open sky. Their entire world consists of corridors, compartments, and closed ecological systems. These individuals might develop claustrophobia, agoraphobia, or other psychological conditions when they finally encounter the open spaces of a planetary surface. Social dynamics aboard generation ships would evolve in unpredictable ways over decades of isolation. Small disagreements could escalate into permanent feuds when people cannot escape each other's company. Religious, political, or cultural divisions might split the crew into factions competing for resources or control of the mission. The children of these divided crews would inherit conflicts they do not understand, potentially leading to civil strife in the cramped confines of the spacecraft. The mission itself could lose meaning over multiple generations. Great-grandchildren of the original crew might question why they should continue toward Proxima Centauri instead of turning around or settling somewhere closer. Without the emotional connection to Earth that motivated the first generation, later crew members might abandon the interstellar journey entirely. Maintaining technological knowledge across generations presents another serious challenge. Complex spacecraft systems require expert operators and maintenance crews. If key personnel die before passing on their skills, critical systems could fail permanently. The psychological pressure of preserving essential knowledge while living in isolation could create intense stress among those responsible for keeping the ship alive. Keeping humans alive during an interstellar journey requires creating a completely closed ecosystem that recycles air, water, and food for generations without any external inputs. Every breath, every drop of water, and every calorie of food must be recycled with perfect efficiency for decades or centuries. A single failure in these life support systems would doom the entire crew to death in the void between stars. Air recycling systems must remove carbon dioxide while continuously regenerating oxygen. Plants provide one solution: converting carbon dioxide to oxygen through photosynthesis. But growing enough vegetation to support a crew requires massive hydroponic farms that need light, nutrients, and careful climate control. The energy requirements for growing food in space approach those needed to propel the spacecraft itself. Water recycling becomes even more critical since water serves multiple functions aboard a spacecraft: drinking, radiation shielding, equipment cooling, and reaction mass for thrusters. Advanced recycling systems can recover water from urine, sweat, humidity, and human waste. But these processes are energy-intensive and require sophisticated machinery that could break down during the journey. Food production in space faces enormous challenges beyond simple plant cultivation. A balanced human diet requires proteins, fats, vitamins, and minerals that cannot all come from simple crops like potatoes or wheat. Meat production remains essentially impossible in space, forcing crews to rely on plant proteins or synthetic alternatives. Vitamin deficiencies could cause serious health problems over multi-year voyages. The closed ecosystem must maintain perfect balance for decades without any external inputs. Earth's biosphere includes millions of species interacting in complex ways to recycle nutrients and maintain atmospheric composition. A spacecraft biosphere might include only dozens of species, making it fragile and susceptible to collapse. The extinction of a single key species could trigger a cascading failure that destroys the entire life support system. Backup systems provide some safety margin, but redundancy adds weight and complexity. Stored food and water can help the crew through emergencies, but these reserves add mass that makes interstellar acceleration more difficult. Radio signals traveling between an interstellar spacecraft and Earth experience delays that gradually stretch from minutes to years, eventually cutting the crew off from any real-time communication with human civilization. At the distance of Mars, signals already take up to 24 minutes to cross space. By the time the spacecraft reaches interstellar space, communication delays stretch to months or years. A message sent from Earth would arrive when the crew has long forgotten the original question. Technical problems that require ground support become impossible to resolve, since any advice from Earth arrives long after the crisis has either resolved itself or destroyed the spacecraft. The growing communication delay isolates the crew psychologically as well as technically. News from Earth becomes increasingly irrelevant as it arrives months or years after events occur. Crew members would learn about the deaths of friends and family long after the funerals, receive birthday greetings from people who might themselves be dead, and watch their civilization evolve through a series of historical snapshots rather than live updates. Radio signal strength follows the inverse square law. Signal power decreases with the square of distance. A transmission that arrives clearly from the distance of Mars becomes barely detectable noise from interstellar distances. Even the most powerful radio transmitters on Earth would struggle to send detectable signals to a spacecraft traveling toward Proxima Centauri. The spacecraft's own transmitters face even greater challenges sending signals back, since power generation aboard an interstellar vessel remains limited and solar panels become useless beyond the outer solar system. These communication blackouts mean interstellar crews must solve every problem independently, with no possibility of assistance from Earth. Proxima Centauri reveals itself as a violent and unstable star that regularly unleashes radiation storms powerful enough to sterilize planets and destroy spacecraft. Unlike our Sun's relatively steady output, this red dwarf erupts in massive flares that increase its brightness by factors of 10 or more within minutes. These stellar tantrums release more energy than humanity has ever produced, hurling deadly radiation across the entire Proxima system. Red dwarf stars burn their fuel so slowly that they can shine for trillions of years, outlasting our own sun by thousands of times. But this incredible longevity comes at a cost. These stars remain active and unstable throughout their extended lifetimes. Where our sun experiences occasional solar storms, Proxima Centauri lives in a permanent state of stellar rage, erupting regularly with flares that would cook any approaching spacecraft. These stellar flares accelerate charged particles to incredible speeds, creating radiation levels that make the journey through interstellar space look safe by comparison. A spacecraft arriving during a major flare would receive radiation doses equivalent to detonating nuclear weapons inside the crew compartment. Even robotic probes would suffer electronic failures capable of destroying mission-critical systems. The planet Proxima b orbits its star at a distance of just 4 million miles. 20 times closer than Earth orbits the Sun. This means the planet receives the full fury of every stellar flare, with no protection from distance. Any atmosphere the planet once possessed has likely been stripped away by billions of years of stellar bombardment, leaving behind a radiation-scarred wasteland. The star's magnetic field creates additional hazards for spacecraft attempting to approach the system. Charged particles trapped in these magnetic field lines form radiation belts similar to Earth's Van Allen belts, but thousands of times more intense. A spacecraft entering the Proxima system would need to navigate through these deadly radiation zones while simultaneously dealing with unpredictable stellar flares. The close orbit of Proxima b also means the planet is likely tidally locked, with one side permanently facing the star while the other remains in eternal darkness. The day side would experience temperatures hot enough to melt lead, while the night side would freeze colder than liquid nitrogen. Any potential for life would exist only in the narrow twilight zone between these extreme environments. Even the timing of arrival could prove fatal. Stellar flares occur randomly, and a spacecraft might arrive during a particularly violent outburst that would destroy it instantly. Mission planners would have no way to predict stellar activity 4 years in advance, making every interstellar journey a gamble against forces beyond human control. Solar sails harness the gentle pressure of starlight to accelerate spacecraft without carrying any fuel. But the forces involved are so weak that reaching interstellar speeds requires sails larger than entire cities. Light carries momentum despite having no mass, exerting tiny pressures on any surface it strikes. This radiation pressure powers solar sails the same way wind powers sailboats. But the forces are millions of times weaker than even the gentlest breeze. A solar sail experiences pressure of just 9 pounds per square mile when facing the sun directly. This gossamer touch could never lift a feather on Earth. But in the vacuum of space, even these tiny forces can gradually accelerate spacecraft to impressive velocities. The secret lies in building sails with enormous surface areas while keeping their mass as low as possible. Successful solar sails require materials so thin they become essentially two-dimensional. Films just a few atoms thick made from materials like graphene or specially engineered polymers. These ultra-thin membranes reflect sunlight while weighing almost nothing, but they remain incredibly fragile. A grain of dust could punch holes through the sail, while solar radiation gradually degrades the material over years of exposure. The largest solar sails ever deployed measure only a few hundred feet across, but interstellar missions would require sails spanning dozens of miles. These massive structures must unfold perfectly in space, maintain their shape across decades of flight, and survive impacts from cosmic dust and debris. The engineering challenges of building and deploying city-sized sails in space dwarf anything humanity has ever attempted. Solar sail acceleration also decreases rapidly with distance from the sun. The gentle push that works near Earth becomes negligible beyond the orbit of Mars. Advanced solar sail concepts propose using powerful lasers instead of sunlight to provide propulsion. These laser-propelled light sails could receive concentrated energy beams from Earth-based transmitters, maintaining acceleration long after leaving the solar system. However, keeping a laser focused on a distant spacecraft requires pointing accuracy measured in billionths of a degree, while the spacecraft's tiny sail must remain perfectly aligned with the incoming beam. A single tear in the sail, a momentary pointing error in the laser, or a software glitch in the alignment system could send the spacecraft tumbling helplessly into the void. Ion drives squeeze every possible mile from their fuel by accelerating individual atoms to incredible speeds. These engines strip electrons from atoms of xenon or other gases, creating charged particles called ions. Powerful electric fields then accelerate these ions to speeds of 60,000 miles per hour before shooting them out the back of the engine as exhaust. The exhaust velocity from ion drives exceeds that of chemical rockets by factors of 10 or more. While chemical rockets blast out hot gases at a few thousand miles per hour, ion drives achieve exhaust velocities approaching 200,000 miles per hour. This incredible efficiency means ion drives can accelerate spacecraft to much higher final speeds using far less fuel. The trade-off comes in thrust levels that barely register on conventional force meters. Thrust measured in ounces rather than tons, creating acceleration so gentle that crew members would not feel it. This gentle acceleration actually becomes an advantage for interstellar missions. Ion drives can run continuously for the entire journey, accelerating for the first half of the trip, then flipping around to decelerate for the second half. The constant thrust gradually builds to velocities that chemical rockets could never achieve, even with unlimited fuel. Modern ion drives consume electrical power measured in kilowatts, requiring large solar arrays or nuclear reactors to operate. The Deep Space One mission used solar panels the size of basketball courts to power a single ion engine producing just 2 ounces of thrust. Scaling this approach to interstellar velocities would require power generation systems rivaling those of entire cities. Advanced ion drive concepts propose using nuclear reactors or even fusion power plants to generate the massive electrical power needed for high-thrust operation. However, building nuclear reactors that operate reliably for decades in the radiation environment of space remains an unsolved engineering challenge. Even the most advanced ion drives face fundamental limitations that prevent them from achieving truly relativistic speeds. Nuclear pulse propulsion harnesses the explosive power of atomic bombs to accelerate spacecraft, detonating nuclear weapons behind massive shock absorbers that convert blast energy into forward motion. This concept sounds like science fiction until you realize that nuclear explosions represent the most concentrated energy sources available to human technology. Project Orion, studied seriously by NASA and the United States Air Force in the 1960s, proposed dropping nuclear bombs out the back of a spacecraft and riding the explosions like a cosmic pogo stick. Each detonation would strike a massive steel pusher plate connected to the crew compartment through heavy shock absorbers. The repeated nuclear explosions would gradually accelerate the spacecraft to incredible speeds, while the shock absorption system protected the crew from being crushed. A single nuclear weapon releases energy equivalent to thousands of tons of chemical explosives, enough to accelerate a massive spacecraft by hundreds of miles per hour with each detonation. Chaining together hundreds or thousands of nuclear explosions could theoretically accelerate spacecraft to significant fractions of the speed of light, making interstellar travel possible within human lifetimes. Nuclear pulse propulsion could also carry enormous payloads compared to other propulsion concepts. Where ion drives and solar sails work only with lightweight probes, nuclear pulse ships could transport entire crews, life support systems, and scientific equipment to other star systems. The engineering challenges, however, border on the insane. The pusher plate must survive repeated nuclear detonations without melting or cracking. The shock absorption system must cushion forces that would otherwise crush the crew. Radiation from nuclear explosions would cook both crew and equipment unless massive shielding was in place. Each detonation creates an electromagnetic pulse that could destroy electronic systems, while neutron radiation would gradually make the entire spacecraft radioactive. Environmental and political concerns make nuclear pulse propulsion nearly impossible to test or deploy. Detonating nuclear weapons in space violates multiple international treaties, and public opposition to nuclear-powered spacecraft has prevented even modest nuclear propulsion programs from moving forward. Yet nuclear pulse propulsion remains one of the few technologies that could realistically send large spacecraft to nearby stars within reasonable timeframes. Antimatter represents the ultimate rocket fuel, capable of converting 100% of its mass directly into energy through annihilation reactions that make nuclear explosions look like firecrackers. When matter and antimatter meet, they destroy each other completely. A single pound of antimatter reacting with a pound of ordinary matter would release energy equivalent to 43 million tons of conventional explosives. This perfect energy conversion makes antimatter the holy grail of spacecraft propulsion. Chemical rockets waste most of their energy heating exhaust gases, while nuclear rockets convert less than 1% of their fuel mass into energy. Antimatter engines could theoretically achieve exhaust velocities approaching the speed of light itself, enabling spacecraft to reach relativistic speeds that make interstellar travel practical within human lifetimes. Just a few ounces of antimatter could accelerate a large spacecraft to 10% of the speed of light, reducing the journey time to Proxima Centauri from tens of thousands of years to mere decades. The fuel requirements drop to manageable levels, eliminating the impossible energy budgets that plague other propulsion concepts. Creating antimatter, however, requires the most advanced particle accelerators on Earth, which consume enormous amounts of electrical energy to produce microscopic quantities. Current production rates measure antimatter in individual atoms rather than usable amounts. Producing a single gram of antimatter would require the entire electrical output of the United States for thousands of years, using current technology. Storing antimatter presents challenges that make nuclear fuel handling look simple. Antimatter cannot touch any ordinary matter without annihilating instantly, requiring containment systems that use magnetic fields to suspend antimatter particles in a perfect vacuum. These magnetic bottles must operate flawlessly for years or decades, since any containment failure would release the entire fuel supply in an explosion that could vaporize the spacecraft. The annihilation reactions that make antimatter such perfect fuel also create deadly radiation that would cook nearby crew members. Antimatter engines require massive radiation shielding to protect human occupants, while the intense energy releases could damage or destroy engine components during operation. Even tiny amounts of antimatter become incredibly dangerous in the wrong hands. A few grams could power a weapon more destructive than the largest nuclear bombs ever built. The security requirements for antimatter production, storage, and transport would rival those of nuclear weapons programs, adding political and military complications to any antimatter-powered space mission. Despite all these challenges, antimatter remains the only known technology that could enable rapid interstellar travel using realistic fuel quantities. Fusion ramjets propose to solve the fuel problem by eating their way through space, scooping up hydrogen atoms from the interstellar medium and burning them in nuclear fusion reactions that power the spacecraft forward. This concept eliminates the need to carry fuel for the entire journey, instead gathering propellant from space itself as the spacecraft travels between stars. The interstellar medium contains roughly 1 hydrogen atom per cubic centimeter, sparse by Earth standards, but potentially harvestable by a spacecraft equipped with massive magnetic field generators. These electromagnetic scoops would extend for thousands of miles ahead of the spacecraft, gathering hydrogen atoms and funneling them into nuclear fusion reactors that burn hydrogen into helium while releasing enormous amounts of energy. A Bussard ramjet, named after physicist Robert Bussard, who proposed the concept, would accelerate continuously throughout its journey as it consumed interstellar hydrogen. The faster the spacecraft travels, the more hydrogen it encounters per unit of time, increasing the fuel flow rate and potentially allowing the ramjet to accelerate all the way to significant fractions of the speed of light. The magnetic field generators required for hydrogen collection would dwarf any technology currently available. The electromagnetic scoop must extend across thousands of miles of space, while generating fields strong enough to deflect and capture any individual hydrogen atoms, moving at relative speeds of millions of miles per hour. Nuclear fusion reactions require temperatures of hundreds of millions of degrees and pressures found only in stellar cores. Creating controlled fusion reactions on Earth remains an unsolved engineering challenge despite decades of research and billions of dollars in development costs. The ramjet concept also faces a fundamental catch-22 problem. The spacecraft must travel at relativistic speeds to collect enough hydrogen to sustain fusion reactions. But reaching those speeds in the first place requires conventional propulsion systems that face all the fuel and energy limitations already discussed. The ramjet cannot start working until the spacecraft already approaches the very speeds that other propulsion systems cannot achieve. Detailed physics calculations suggest that ramjets might actually slow down rather than speed up at high velocities. The drag forces created by plowing through the interstellar medium at relativistic speeds could exceed the thrust generated by burning the collected hydrogen, turning the ramjet into a brake rather than an engine. Breakthrough Starshot proposes building a laser system powerful enough to accelerate tiny spacecraft to 20% of the speed of light, reaching Proxima Centauri in just 20 years. This ambitious project abandons human crews entirely, focusing on miniaturized robots small enough to ride waves of laser light across interstellar distances. The concept requires building an array of ground-based lasers with combined power output measured in gigawatts, equivalent to several nuclear power plants operating simultaneously. These laser arrays would focus their energy into tight beams capable of pushing small spacecraft equipped with ultra-lightweight solar sails. The intense laser light would accelerate the probes to incredible speeds within minutes. Each Starshot probe would weigh less than 1 gram, roughly equivalent to a computer chip equipped with cameras, sensors, and communication equipment. Advanced manufacturing techniques borrowed from computer chip production could theoretically build thousands of these tiny probes for the cost of a single conventional spacecraft. The laser acceleration phase lasts only minutes, during which the probes experience acceleration forces millions of times stronger than Earth's gravity. These extreme forces would crush any conventional spacecraft. But gram-scale probes could survive because their small size and low mass distribute the acceleration forces more easily. Keeping the laser beam focused on tiny spacecraft moving at 20% of the speed of light requires pointing accuracy that exceeds anything ever achieved. The laser system must track targets smaller than computer chips across trillions of miles, while compensating for atmospheric distortion, Earth's rotation, and the spacecraft's own motion. A pointing error smaller than the width of a human hair could cause the laser to miss its target entirely. The probes cannot slow down when they reach Proxima Centauri, since they carry no fuel for deceleration. Instead, they would flash past the Proxima system at 20% of the speed of light, gathering data during a flyby lasting just a few hours. All scientific observations would need to occur automatically, since radio signals take over 4 years to travel between Earth and Proxima. Communication with the probes presents its own challenges. The gram-scale spacecraft cannot carry powerful radio transmitters, forcing them to rely on weak signals that become barely detectable across interstellar distances. Ground-based radio telescopes would need to search for signals thousands of times weaker than current detection limits, assuming the probe's transmitter survives the 20-year journey through space. Despite these challenges, Breakthrough Starshot represents the most realistic near-term approach to interstellar exploration. Suspended animation could transform the psychological nightmare of interstellar travel into a dreamless sleep, allowing crews to skip the decade-long journey and wake up refreshed at their destination. This concept borrows from natural hibernation seen in bears, ground squirrels, and other animals that slow their metabolism during winter months. Medical researchers have achieved limited success with therapeutic hypothermia, cooling patients during complex surgeries to slow their metabolism and reduce tissue damage. These procedures typically last hours rather than years. but they prove that human metabolism can be safely slowed under controlled conditions. Deep hibernation slows animal metabolism by factors of 10 or more, allowing creatures to survive months without food while consuming minimal oxygen. Their heart rates drop to just a few beats per minute, brain activity becomes barely detectable, and body temperatures fall close to freezing. These hibernating animals essentially pause their lives, emerging in spring with minimal aging despite months of inactivity. Human hibernation research remains in its earliest stages, but scientists have identified some of the biological mechanisms that control hibernation in animals. Specialized hormones trigger the hibernation response, while other biochemical changes protect cells from damage during extended periods of reduced metabolism. Understanding and replicating these processes in humans could eventually enable artificial hibernation for space travel. Suspended animation systems would need to maintain crews in hibernation for decades while monitoring their health and preventing medical emergencies. Automated medical systems would need to provide nutrition, remove waste products, and treat any health problems that develop during the long sleep. Since crew members cannot wake up to repair failures, the hibernation process itself carries significant medical risks. Cooling the human body triggers numerous physiological changes that can cause heart problems, blood clots, organ failure, and brain damage. Current therapeutic hypothermia procedures require constant medical supervision, making them impractical for multi-year applications without major technological advances. Waking up from decade-long hibernation could prove as dangerous as the sleep itself. The human body would require careful rewarming and rehabilitation to restore normal function after years of inactivity. Muscle atrophy, bone loss, and neurological changes could leave crew members weak or disabled at the very moment they need to be at peak performance for planetary exploration. Artificial intelligence could eliminate human crews entirely, sending robot explorers that never get lonely, never need food or air, and never worry about returning home. These mechanical ambassadors could survive radiation doses that would kill humans instantly, operate in vacuum without life support, and remain functional for centuries while traveling between stars. Modern spacecraft already rely heavily on autonomous systems that navigate, communicate, and conduct scientific observations without human intervention. The Mars rovers operate independently for months at a time, making navigation decisions and selecting scientific targets using artificial intelligence. Scaling these capabilities to interstellar missions would require AI systems capable of independent operation for decades without any possibility of human assistance. The mass savings from eliminating life support systems would dramatically improve the feasibility of interstellar missions. Human crews require air, water, food, radiation shielding, and living space that add thousands of tons to spacecraft mass. Robot explorers need only their scientific instruments, communication equipment, and propulsion systems. This mass reduction translates directly into higher achievable velocities or lower energy requirements. Artificial intelligence systems could potentially make better scientific decisions than human crews during the brief flyby of an alien star system. AI can process information faster than humans, consider multiple options simultaneously, and optimize scientific observations in real time. When every second counts during a high-speed encounter with an alien world, artificial intelligence might maximize the scientific return from the mission. The development of artificial general intelligence capable of autonomous interstellar exploration remains decades away, despite rapid advances in machine learning and robotics. Current AI systems excel at specific tasks, but lack the flexibility and creativity needed for open-ended exploration of unknown environments. Creating AI systems capable of operating independently for decades while adapting to unforeseen challenges represents one of the greatest technical hurdles in computer science. Communication delays mean that robot explorers must make critical decisions without any input from Earth. A robot encountering unexpected obstacles or opportunities around Proxima Centauri cannot wait 4 years for instructions from ground controllers. The artificial intelligence must evaluate situations, weigh options, and act with the same independence expected from human explorers. Generation ships must grow large enough to house entire civilizations, creating self-sustaining worlds that carry thousands of people across the void between stars. These massive vessels would dwarf anything humanity has ever built, stretching for miles and containing forests, lakes, and agricultural areas large enough to support diverse ecosystems. The smallest viable generation ship would need to house at least 10,000 people to maintain genetic diversity and preserve human culture throughout the multi-century journey. This population requires living space equivalent to a major city, along with all the infrastructure needed for manufacturing, agriculture, education, and governance. The spacecraft would essentially become a floating nation, crossing interstellar space with no possibility of outside assistance. Artificial gravity becomes essential for human health during multi-generational voyages, since prolonged weightlessness causes bone loss, muscle atrophy, and cardiovascular problems. The most practical approach involves rotating the entire spacecraft to create centrifugal force that mimics gravity. However, generating Earth normal gravity requires massive rotating structures with diameters measured in miles rather than feet. The structural stresses in rotating generation ships approach the breaking point of any known material. The outer sections would experience forces equivalent to dozens of times Earth's gravity, requiring construction materials stronger than steel to prevent catastrophic structural failure. Advanced materials like carbon nanotubes might provide sufficient strength, but manufacturing techniques for building mile-long structures from these materials remain purely theoretical. Closed ecological systems aboard generation ships must function perfectly for centuries without any external inputs. A single ecological catastrophe could doom the entire population to starvation or suffocation in the vacuum of space. Social and political systems aboard generation ships would evolve in isolation from Earth, potentially creating entirely new forms of human civilization by the time the ship reaches its destination. The children and grandchildren of the original crew might develop different languages, customs, and political structures adapted to life aboard the spacecraft. These cultural changes could make communication with Earth increasingly difficult as the journey progresses. The economic cost of building generation ships would exceed the gross domestic product of entire nations. Constructing mile-long spacecraft requires materials measured in millions of tons, manufacturing capabilities that dwarf current industrial capacity, and labor forces comparable to the largest infrastructure projects ever undertaken. The financial investment needed might require cooperation among multiple nations or fundamental changes in how human civilization allocates its resources. Interstellar travel costs so much that only the threat of human extinction could justify the massive economic investment required to send people to other star systems. The price tag for generation ships or advanced propulsion systems exceeds the gross domestic product of entire nations, requiring a level of international cooperation and resource allocation that humanity has never achieved. Consider the economic scale of building a generation ship capable of carrying 10,000 people to Proxima Centauri. Conservative cost estimates reach hundreds of billions or even trillions of dollars, a significant fraction of global economic output. These costs become manageable only when compared to the value of human survival itself. Earth faces numerous existential threats that could end human civilization within centuries or millennia. Asteroid impacts, supervolcanic eruptions, gamma-ray bursts, and artificial intelligence risks all pose potential extinction scenarios that would make the investment in interstellar travel look trivial by comparison. Spending trillions of dollars on backup colonies starts to seem reasonable when the alternative is complete extinction. The economic argument for interstellar colonization follows the same logic used for insurance policies. People pay monthly premiums to protect against unlikely but catastrophic events. Nations invest in military defense systems to deter attacks that may never come. Interstellar colonies represent the ultimate insurance policy, protecting human civilization against risks that could eliminate every person on Earth simultaneously. Financial models for interstellar missions must account for economic returns that span centuries or millennia. The resources and knowledge gained from establishing interstellar colonies could eventually repay the initial investment, but these returns would accrue to future generations rather than the original investors. Traditional economic analysis breaks down when applied to projects with century-long timescales and existential risk as the motivating factor. International cooperation becomes essential for any realistic interstellar colonization program. Since no single nation possesses the resources needed to build generation ships or advanced propulsion systems, the political challenges of maintaining international cooperation for century-long projects rival the technical challenges of interstellar travel itself. Economic interests, political conflicts, and changing leadership could derail interstellar programs long before spacecraft reach their destinations. Private funding sources might eventually contribute to interstellar exploration, as wealthy individuals and corporations recognize the long-term value of species survival. However, private funding alone cannot cover the enormous costs of generation ships or advanced propulsion development. Proxima b presents a world of extremes, where one hemisphere burns under eternal day while the other freezes in permanent night, creating conditions unlike anything found in our solar system. This alien world orbits so close to its red dwarf star that gravitational forces have locked it in place, forcing the same side to always face Proxima Centauri. The result is a planet split between fire and ice, with potentially habitable conditions existing only in the narrow twilight zone between these extremes. The day side of Proxima b experiences temperatures hot enough to melt lead. Stellar radiation from the nearby red dwarf bathes this hemisphere in energy levels that exceed those found on Venus, creating a hellscape of superheated rock and possibly molten lava flows. Any atmosphere on the day side would be stripped away by the intense stellar wind and radiation pressure. The night side presents equally hostile conditions, but for opposite reasons. Permanent darkness and isolation from stellar heat would create temperatures approaching absolute zero, cold enough to freeze carbon dioxide and nitrogen into solid ice. This frozen wasteland would be as lifeless as the surface of Pluto, with no energy sources to support any form of biological activity. Between these extreme hemispheres lies a twilight zone where temperatures might allow liquid water to exist on the surface. This narrow band represents the only potentially habitable region on the planet. But it would experience constant hurricane-force winds as hot air from the day side rushes toward the cold night side. Stellar flares from Proxima Centauri would periodically sterilize any life that might exist on the planet's surface. These radiation bursts occur randomly and without warning, delivering doses of high-energy particles that would kill exposed organisms instantly. Any potential life on Proxima b would need to shelter underground or in deep water to survive these periodic sterilization events. The planet's magnetic field, if it exists at all, would be much weaker than Earth's protective magnetosphere. Without adequate magnetic shielding, the stellar wind from Proxima Centauri would gradually strip away any atmosphere the planet might possess. This atmospheric erosion has likely been occurring for billions of years, potentially leaving behind only a thin residual atmosphere or none at all. Despite all these challenges, Proxima b remains our best target for interstellar exploration, simply because it is the closest potentially rocky planet to Earth. Radio waves travel at the speed of light, making them the fastest messengers we could send to announce our arrival at Proxima Centauri years before any spacecraft reaches the system. A carefully crafted radio message could serve as humanity's first diplomatic contact with any intelligent life that might exist around our nearest stellar neighbor. Powerful radio transmitters on Earth could send signals strong enough to be detected across interstellar distances. Assuming alien civilizations possess radio telescopes similar to our own, advanced civilizations around Proxima Centauri might be able to receive and decode radio messages transmitted from Earth using current technology. The message content would require careful consideration to ensure it could be understood by non-human intelligence. Mathematical concepts like prime numbers or geometric relationships might serve as universal languages that any scientific civilization would recognize. Encoding human knowledge into radio signals presents fascinating challenges. How do you explain color to beings that might perceive different wavelengths of light? How do you describe music to creatures that might not have auditory systems? The process of creating interstellar messages forces us to think deeply about what aspects of human experience might be universal versus culturally specific. The timing of signal transmission becomes crucial when planning a coordinated approach. Radio signals sent today would reach Proxima Centauri in 4 years and 3 months, while spacecraft using current propulsion technology would require tens of thousands of years to complete the same journey. Advanced propulsion systems could reduce spacecraft travel time to decades, allowing radio messages and physical visitors to arrive within the same historical period. The power requirements for interstellar radio communication remain manageable compared to the energy needed for spacecraft propulsion. Earth's largest radio transmitters consume electrical power measured in megawatts rather than the gigawatts required for advanced spacecraft engines. This makes radio communication an affordable first step toward interstellar contact, even before humanity develops practical interstellar propulsion. Interstellar missions carry such enormous risks that responsible mission planning requires multiple backup spacecraft, redundant systems, and alternative destinations to ensure that at least some portion of humanity's interstellar efforts succeed. The vast distances and decade-long journey times mean that single-point failures could doom entire missions, wasting centuries of preparation and astronomical investments. Multiple spacecraft launching toward the same destination would provide insurance against individual mission failures from technical malfunctions, navigation errors, or encounters with space debris. If 5th-generation ships departed for Proxima Centauri using different launch windows and trajectory profiles, the probability that at least one mission succeeds increases dramatically compared to betting everything on a single spacecraft. Backup destinations become crucial when primary targets prove unsuitable for colonization or hostile to human life. Recent exoplanet discoveries have identified potentially habitable worlds around nearby stars. Developing interstellar missions toward multiple destinations simultaneously would hedge against the possibility that Proxima b proves uninhabitable, or that one particular mission encounters insurmountable obstacles. Different propulsion technologies should be pursued simultaneously to avoid dependence on any single approach that might prove technically impossible or economically unfeasible. This technological diversification ensures that interstellar exploration continues even if specific propulsion concepts fail to meet their performance goals. Robotic precursor missions could scout potential destinations decades before human crews arrive, providing crucial information about local conditions and identifying the most promising targets for colonization. Small robot probes launched using laser propulsion could reach nearby star systems within 20 to 30 years, gathering data about planetary environments, radiation levels, and potential resources. Communication relay networks positioned between Earth and interstellar destinations could maintain contact with distant spacecraft throughout their journeys. These relay stations, powered by nuclear reactors and equipped with powerful radio transmitters, would extend communication range and provide backup paths if primary systems fail. Automated manufacturing systems aboard interstellar spacecraft could produce spare parts and replacement equipment during the long journey. reducing dependence on components that might fail after decades in space. Three-dimensional printing technology and robotic assembly systems could manufacture everything from electronic components to structural materials using raw materials carried aboard the spacecraft or harvested from asteroids encountered during the journey. The ultimate backup plan involves establishing self-sustaining human populations in multiple star systems rather than relying on single colonies that might fail due to local catastrophes or environmental changes. The seemingly impossible journey to Proxima Centauri represents humanity's only long-term strategy for surviving the cosmic threats that could end our species within the next few centuries or millennia. Earth exists in a dangerous universe filled with asteroid impacts, supervolcanic eruptions, gamma-ray bursts, and other catastrophic events that have caused mass extinctions throughout geological history. The dinosaurs ruled Earth for over 160 million years before an asteroid impact ended their dominance in a matter of hours. Similar cosmic catastrophes await our planet on timescales that seem distant to individual humans, but represent mere moments in the history of the universe. Without interstellar colonies, humanity remains vulnerable to single events that could eliminate every person on Earth simultaneously, ending 4 billion years of biological evolution in our corner of the galaxy. Developing interstellar travel technology would transform human civilization in ways that extend far beyond simple species survival. The engineering challenges of building generation ships, fusion rockets, and life support systems for century-long voyages would drive technological advances that revolutionize life on Earth. Energy production, materials science, artificial intelligence, and closed-loop ecology would all advance rapidly to meet the demands of interstellar exploration. The perspective shift that comes from becoming an interstellar species could fundamentally change how humans view themselves and their place in the universe. Political conflicts over national boundaries would seem trivial when viewed from the scale of light years, while environmental problems that appear insurmountable might be solved using technologies developed for spacecraft life support systems. Interstellar exploration would force humanity to think and plan on timescales measured in centuries rather than election cycles. Scientific discoveries made during interstellar exploration could answer fundamental questions about the nature of life, intelligence, and consciousness in the universe. Finding life around other stars would prove that biology represents a universal phenomenon rather than a cosmic accident unique to Earth. Discovering alien civilizations would revolutionize our understanding of intelligence, technology, and the possible futures that await intelligent species. The economic benefits of interstellar colonization would eventually justify the enormous initial investments as human populations around other stars develop new technologies, exploit alien resources, and establish knowledge networks spanning light years. These interstellar connections would provide backup sources of culture and genetic diversity that could help Earth recover from future catastrophes or simply continue advancing human civilization. Ultimately, the journey to Proxima Centauri represents more than just traveling to another star. It represents humanity's graduation from a single-planet species vulnerable to cosmic accidents into a spacefaring civilization capable of spreading life and intelligence throughout the galaxy. The technical challenges are enormous. The costs are staggering, and the timescales stretch beyond individual human lifespans. But the alternative is extinction. We have journeyed through the crushing vastness of space, faced radiation storms that would cook us alive, and confronted energy requirements that dwarf our entire civilization. Every mile toward Proxima Centauri reveals new impossibilities that seem designed to keep us forever trapped on our small blue world. Yet within these impossible challenges lies humanity's greatest opportunity: to transcend our planetary origins and become something far greater than we are today. The same species that once huddled around fires, fearing the darkness beyond, has already sent robotic ambassadors to every planet in our solar system. We have split atoms, decoded our own DNA, and built machines that think. The impossible has a curious habit of becoming inevitable when humans decide to make it so. The journey to Proxima Centauri will require us to solve problems that currently seem beyond the reach of human engineering and imagination. But perhaps that is exactly what we need. A challenge so immense that it forces us to evolve, to cooperate, and to think beyond the short-term conflicts that currently divide our species. The technologies we develop for interstellar travel will transform life on Earth, while the perspective of becoming an interstellar civilization will reshape how we see ourselves and our future. 4.2 light-years away, a red dwarf star burns with the accumulated fury of billions of nuclear explosions. And orbiting that cosmic furnace sits a world that might become humanity's second home. The distance between here and there contains enough emptiness to swallow 1 million solar systems, but also enough possibility to give our species a future among the stars. The impossible journey to Proxima Centauri is not just about reaching another world. It is about ensuring that human consciousness, creativity, and love survive long enough to seed the galaxy with life and meaning. Right now, 4.2 light-years away, a red dwarf star called Proxima Centauri burns with the fury of 600 billion nuclear bombs every second. Orbiting this cosmic furnace sits a world that might harbor life, our closest potentially habitable neighbor in the entire universe. But between us and that alien shore,